You're listening to Beat Autoimmune and Thrive, the podcast all about reversing and preventing autoimmune conditions so you can live your most vibrant life as soon as possible. We talk about autoimmune root causes, actionable solutions, and inspirational healing stories. I'm Palmer Kippola, and I used to have MS. Today, I'm an author, a speaker, a functional medicine certified health coach, a pickleball player, and nature lover who's helped thousands of people reclaim their health and their best lives. Let's dive into this episode. Hi, everyone. I'm super excited. Linda Clark is back with us today to talk about healthy detoxification. Linda has a master's in holistic health, and she's a certified holistic nutritionist. She's an adjunct professor at John F. Kennedy University, where she teaches graduate courses in holistic nutrition, functional endocrinology, diet and meal planning, functional testing, thyroid health, brain health, et cetera, et cetera. She is a teacher. She has been in clinical practice for more than 16 years, right, Linda?
Correct.
And she has her own story of healing from autoimmune disorders, including, and it might not be limited to, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, multiple chemical sensitivities, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and celiac disease. Am I missing any label there, Linda?
That's all I know about.
That's all we know about. All right, that's enough. And from this, and after she healed, this was enough to propel her to want to study nutrition and help other people heal. So since then, she has created a program that she calls Detox 360, which is a powerful diet and lifestyle approach to detoxification and long-term health. Welcome, Linda. It is so great to have you back.
Thanks, Palmer. I'm so glad to be back with you.
Yay. Well, this is great. I feel like we're sort of, we've been on this healing journey, and now we're both like taking what we've learned and helping other people, which is just fantastic. And I am so excited for everybody watching this, because this is really going to be a graduate level, but simplified graduate level course in healthy detoxification. So if you don't have a pen and paper handy, go grab one, because this is really meaty stuff. And I know people might have questions after watching this and listening to this, but I really want you, it's profoundly important that we have an understanding of what goes on under the hood. Because when you start to feel bad, when you have autoimmunity, when things start to go haywire, there are things that are happening in your body that should be happening a specific way, right? To detoxify us naturally. But we are under this onslaught of toxins, and we've talked about that a lot. It's a chapter in my book on minimizing toxins. So we know that we're being faced with this just barrage of chemicals. It's in our food, our air, our environment. We've never faced anything like this before. So we need to more and more have a really good foundational appreciation for what's going on, what should be going on in our bodies. And when it's not happening that way, to be able to assist ourselves, to assist our livers, which are so overburdened, and our kidneys and our lymphatic system. So today, Linda is kind enough to take her knowledge and her lectures that she delivers to graduate students and her clients and break it down for us into more digestible pieces so that we can really get this in an actionable kind of way. So Linda, I am thrilled that you're here, and I know that you've got stuff to share. So I'm going to turn over the host controls to you, so that you can begin to share your screen. Let's see if we can do this. Very exciting. You're in charge, full control. So take it away, Linda. Break it down. And every time I have a question, if you don't mind, I'll, just break in for clarification.
You gave such a beautiful overview. I probably don't need to do much more. I think we had talked about preliminarily that I might talk a little bit about why I got into this and doing the detoxification, why it's so important to me, and why I developed the Detox 360 program. So more people could partake of a really good, healthy detox lifestyle and detox program. I'm going to make it as brief as I can. This is probably about 24 years ago that I all of a sudden did not feel well. And I thought, I'm working too hard. I'm raising kids. I have a family. I'm working 7 days a week. I own a business. So obviously I'm not going to feel well, right? I'm stressed. And I thought, I had just done a speaking engagement, and I thought, okay, I'll get through it. I had my fingers crossed. I'll get through this speaking engagement, and I'll just go home and I'll spend the next 3 days just resting, taking care of myself. And that was my journey into chronic fatigue, multiple chemical sensitivity, fibromyalgia, aching every single place in my body. Never really fully diagnosed because 25 years ago, chronic fatigue wasn't really on the lexicon of medicine at that time. It was just kind of barely there. And I had no idea why I couldn't function. I mean, I was really seriously ill. I was in bed for a whole year, I couldn't work, had to lose a business. So when I started to read about all of my symptoms, which there weren't many books out there, there were a few that I read. I had a few colleagues at that time that were actually in the health field. And I said, can I pick your brain? I don't know what's going on because my doctor said to me, there's nothing wrong. And I said, there's something wrong that I could barely walk into the office and I'm dizzy all the time. I walk into a store, I can hardly do that, can't even drive. And I feel dizzy and overwhelmed. Why am I having these symptoms? So through the next few years, I learned more about not only the body and how it works, but also about detoxification and why I would have multiple chemical sensitivity, why I would have low immune tolerance to things that before I loved to walk into a store, and I did a lot of work with people with their clothing, with color and perfumes. I loved perfumes. Of course, now we know they're chemicals. They're not super healthy. Essential oils even bothered me at that time too. I couldn't even go into a health food store. Although eventually I started to run a health food store when I got better. And I started to put the pieces together, not only from my reading, but talking to people. I met doctors outside of traditional medicine or conventional medicine, and naturopathic doctors, as well as chiropractors and other health professionals. And everyone had a little piece. And all of them were saying you should probably detox. Well, I had no idea what that meant. What did that mean? So I ended up by doing everything I possibly could. Eventually on a diet, and that's got me started in thinking about food as medicine. But I started doing coffee enemas. I thought, okay, I'll do whatever it takes. So I did coffee enemas all the time, and I felt worse. Oh, it was too much when I first started detox because I was one of those really chronically inflamed, sensitive individuals who has very poor detoxification. And I deal with that a lot of time in my practice. And I've learned how to work with people who have those extreme sensitivities. So today, I'm going to present you a little bit of a PowerPoint. But first of all, I want to talk about the liver because the liver is your primary detox organ. There's kidney and there's lymph and there's lungs and there's skin and all of that. But I really want to talk about the liver because a lot of us are having issues with our liver, especially if we have gallbladder issues. And I'm seeing a lot of it in my practice. So what I'd like to do right now is just kind of bring up, and I'm going to kind of just put share screen. That'll work for me.
That's it.
Okay. So we'll pull it up. And that's going to share this picture of the liver. Hopefully you all can see that. This is not a lesson in anatomy and physiology that you're going to have to take a lot of notes. I just want you to think about your liver. Think about putting your hands over on the right side, under your ribs on the right side, and over a little bit over to the right. That is where this beautiful dome-shaped muscle is. This is your liver. And a lot of times, if you're having any pain or discomfort there, it means there is some congestion that's happening in the liver itself. The liver has over 500 different processes. So you can imagine there's no way that I'm going to memorize that or anyone else is going to memorize all the processes. But it processes your red blood cells. There's a breakdown of red blood cells through the bilirubin that comes through it. And bilirubin, as it's coming through, and you can see on a blood test, actually gives color because it's breaking down red blood cells. And the liver has to process that so we can renew and refresh our blood cells. It also is detoxification. Everything you eat and consume comes right in through your stomach, goes into your intestines, but also passes through the liver, the bile, because the bile makes the fats, the bile salts that digest your fats. But everything eventually goes to the circulation and has to come to the liver. You can see how important it is. And the liver clears all those medications and those toxins that we take in every single day. It also makes cholesterol, and cholesterol carries all of our fat-soluble nutrients and our fats throughout our body. So just be aware that the liver is actually making the cholesterol. Just think that everyone thinks, oh, we eat a lot of food with cholesterol, we make cholesterol. The liver makes cholesterol. And your insulin, which is the hormone that helps you make energy with your food, actually turns on that cholesterol making machine in your liver. And you want that. You want to be able to deliver the cholesterol and the fat soluble nutrients. It also has another very important function in that it stores our extra glucose. It's glycogen. It stores it so that we have it available when we're not eating. So as soon as we're not eating, so that we can still have energy, the liver is now releasing that glycogen. It's broken down, makes more glucose, and now we have energy. So it's a really important organ, and it's our second largest organ next to the skin. So I just want to take you a little bit through a little bit of the process as we're looking here. And you can see the liver, and it makes bile, one of its most important functions besides cholesterol and storage. And you can see that it looks like a little jalapeno pepper. That's the gallbladder.
Hysterical.
And then you have ducts. These are like tubes that come around, you can see, because you've got the common hepatic duct, which brings the bile into the gallbladder from the liver. The liver makes bile.
And the hepatic, just a question, just means liver.
Yeah, hepatic is liver.
Okay.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the cystic duct. And the cystic duct is the little tube that actually joins with the common hepatic duct, and that will carry the bile into the intestines. Now you get to digest fats. Now, the other thing that bile has, it holds the toxins. And so when you are dumping the bile into the small intestine, guess what happens? The toxins get circulated now through your GI tract. So and then the liver, of course, is going to support it through different detox pathways to be able to break those toxins down and clear them further.
Okay, I wanted to pause you for one quick sec. I know you're on the verge of saying something super important, but there are a lot of people that don't have a gallbladder. So I wanted you to address that. I thought this would be a good place. And you just touched on it takes it through the GI tract so that we pass this out, we eliminate it as waste. And this is why if you're constipated, we have a problem. So if you want to touch on that, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Yeah, and that's why I wanted to have this picture in front of us, is that when we think of, taking scissors and cutting off your gallbladder. Now, you're still going to make bile, but now there's no repository for it, and it has to go into these slender little tubes into the common hepatic duct and the cystic duct into the duodenum, which is your small intestine. That's the first part of your small intestine. And at the same time, it has to dump bile into the pancreas to be able to digest and absorb your fats. So you can see having a gallbladder is very important. It's a good repository, and it takes a lot more effort for the body to process the toxins and the bile in those little tiny ducts that come through, rather than having it held in the gallbladder and being able to filter it on through.
But it can still be done.
Oh, absolutely. It can still be done. And this is the important thing, I think, that we as practitioners do need to look at when a person doesn't have a gallbladder, because so many people don't have gallbladders these days, is that you still need to help the bile move smoothly, because it's going to be a bit more sluggish and more difficult for it to move through. So you need to have things, bile salts. Some people need bile salts. Stomach acid. Without stomach acid, you cannot make bile move efficiently through the GI tract. So basically, you need that stomach acid to elicit the dumping of the bile itself to emulsify the fats. So I always think of having support, hydrochloric acid support. I think of milk thistle, dandelion root. They're cholagogues that help the bile thin and it's less sluggish.
Perfect.
Because you're going to form, you don't, a lot of people have had gallstones, but you form stones in the liver as well, and you can end up with liver sludge. So you kind of don't want to do that. So you need these other agents, and you need lipase to help break down the fats as well. And that's from your digestive enzymes that are from the pancreas itself.
All right. And we've got our lipase, we've got our HCl. We want to consider folks that don't have a gallbladder, just want to underscore this, the importance of things like milk thistle, dandelion, all those bitter herbs that you talked about, that your liver and gallbladder absolutely love, so that you can keep that bile flowing instead of being sluggish.
Right. And will keep you from being constipated if you're prone to being constipated. Because one of the things that impedes detoxification is constipation, because you're not moving the toxins regularly through the colon into the feces and excreting them. And they actually can sit there and build up and recirculate as a result of that. So I like when people have constipation, besides using everything that we talked about, magnesium also helps smooth the bile. It helps peristalsis. It helps that movement, that muscular movement through the GI tract. Their fiber will also help. Sometimes we combine fiber, especially fiber from foods, with the magnesium to help mobilize the the feces. So those are things that I think you, if you are having problems with that, I think you need to kind of be aware of. I'm one of those that I grew up with a mother who had constipation. She spent 2 hours in the bathroom. I thought she was hiding out from us, but she was trying to go.
Oh my goodness.
And the reason was she had thyroid issues. She had very sluggish thyroid. And thyroid is so important because thyroid helps you make lipase, helps the movement of the bile through the liver into the gallbladder. So sometimes when you have low thyroid function, you're going to have very sluggish bile. The other thing I want to draw your attention to is birth control and hormone replacement. Yes, necessary, but you end up with more of an estrogen dominance, especially with birth control, and that thickens the bile. So it impedes the detoxification of that estrogen. Now, in order to make your hormones, you have to detox them. You have to break them down, metabolize them, get into cholesterol, and move it on through to be utilized, and then move them on out. So that's part of hormone physiology. Just basic hormone is detoxification of your hormones. So I hope that's, if you have other questions, of course, you can always ask Palmer and ask me.
You'll be back. You'll be back. Now, this is a great.
I give you kind of a good idea of the things that, we see in practice every day, and how important it is, I think, for all of us to understand a little bit more about our own body. I found that the only way I could heal was to really learn about my body and what happened to it, and how then I could interact with it and help facilitate the healing. So that's why I'm really I'm big on looking at, organs in anatomy books to see what's going on with them.
It's huge. And I think unless people really have a good understanding of what's supposed to happen, and this is the picture of what's supposed to happen, it really, like when things start breaking down, no doctor, conventional doctor that I know has ever sat me down and said, Palmer, you need to be on birth control, but let me show you what's happening inside your body when you take it. I mean, that's like no doctor ever said that. And it's up to us to really take care of ourselves, and looking under the hood is fantastic. So keep going.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing, as you mentioned, the birth control. Another thing I want to say, and we'll look at it a little bit later and you'll understand more of what's needed for it. But birth control, we know, impedes many of our multiple vitamins, especially your B vitamins, especially B6, which is part of our methylation cycle, which is our DNA repair cycle of our body. It goes on all the time, and it needs nutrients for that, especially your B vitamins and B12 and B6. And it is inhibiting that. So we need to, whenever on birth control, we need to make sure we're on those vitamins extra, because eating foods will help, but it's not going to be enough because the process is so strong of impedance and inhibition. So I'll kind of go over that when we look at the different aspects of liver detox and how we are actually breaking down our hormones and which pathways and what nutrients we actually need.
Awesome.
So I'm going to stop sharing this. Okay, here I am.
Here you are.
Oh gosh, I hate to be in teacher mode because it's like moving on like the Roadrunner here.
You're doing great.
So kind of we wanted to draw our attention today to probably more detox than really go into kind of what's going on with detox. And so I thought, and I asked Palmer with her permission, because I don't want to bore anybody, because I don't want to give you so much information, you're so overwhelmed by it. Because for me, it's take the information and use it. How practical can we make it for you? So I'm going to share my screen again, and I'm going to pull up PowerPoint, and I'm going to share that. And then I'm going to actually do a slideshow here. And we're going to do from current slide. Okay, can you see that now?
Perfect.
Okay, good. I have permission from Dr. Datis Karazian, whom many of you might have heard of. He's written a book on thyroid. He's written a book on the brain. He gives podcasts all the time. He teaches courses. I just finished his thyroid course, his advanced thyroid course. I have permission to use some of his slides that he uses when he teaches. So I have to say that so that everyone knows that. He brought to my attention, and this is something related to people who have low immune tolerance and start developing multiple chemical sensitivity. And that was me at a very high level. And there's so many of you out there that are starting to show the signs of it. Why, for instance, all of a sudden you're wearing an earring and you start oozing, your ear starts oozing, or it looks like it's getting infected, or they itch. Or you're wearing jewelry and the back of your neck, you start getting a rash on the back of your neck. Or you walk into a department store and you can't even make it by the perfume counter. You have to circumvent yourself around it because you cannot stand all of those chemicals. Or you go into a grocery aisle where you have detergents and you cannot. These are signs that you are becoming less tolerant to your environment. And I had those signs. My first sign was I was wearing earrings all the time. Because remember, I worked in the fashion industry. You had to wear earrings. You had to look good. And all of a sudden, I had these red ears and they were oozing. And I got so I couldn't wear earrings. And to this day, I won't even wear earrings. I love them, but I won't wear them. That was my first sign. And I was working with a lot of fabric at that time. And I started becoming reactive to the fabrics. It was hard to be around them. So you can see those signs that we're starting. So what we have looked at are different models of toxicity. And this is what I want to share with you. Because the federal government can say that it's safe, but it depends upon how much exposure you're getting. Let's just say that you have mercury amalgams in your teeth and you're being exposed every single day. Or let's just say that you were out in a farm where they were spraying pesticides. That's a huge exposure. yes, you might have reactions, and yes, you might not be able to clear it and then develop these symptoms of low immune tolerance. By the way, the federal government has only labeled 5 of the 80,000 or more toxins in our environment as unsafe. So I just want you to know there are some problems now with toxins being put into our environment that haven't been really fully tested for their safety factor.
I'll just pause and put an asterisk on this. And in the book, I talk about the need to practice the precautionary principle. Okay. Because no one else is doing this research. They do a lot more research on chemicals before they're released into the environment. In Europe, it's not that way here. And we don't test the interactions between chemicals, and it has to be proven. In Europe, it has to be proven safe before it can be released. And here, you have to go to court to prove that it's toxic. So we have to, as the CEOs of our own health and well-being, practice this precautionary principle and just eat organic food, use, and you're going to go into this, but I just wanted to underscore that nobody's looking out for the safety of the chemicals, which is why we as individuals, as consumers, need to manage this with our pocketbooks.
Thank you so much for saying that, because it isn't just even the dose, it's all the buildup. It's the quantity of doses. Think of your day. I mean, think of taking yourself through your day from the time you get up, the time you get yourself ready, whether you're at home all day or whether you're going to work. What kind of toxic exposures are you experiencing on a daily basis? So it isn't just one, it's hundreds of different toxins. What do you put on your skin? What do you put in your mouth? What do you use in your own home environment? Those are all things that not only my detox program looks at, because if you can lower your toxic load on a daily basis, it makes a huge difference for not only the buildup of these toxins, but your ability to naturally detoxify them out because you don't have such a toxic load every single day. So this is where this buildup model, and it's the quantity of exposure. And that's kind of where we're all at every single day. But then when you start having those symptoms where you're reacting to things in your environment or around you that you didn't react to before, we now know there's a whole different set of reactions. We now have what we call immune intolerance. So we're not tolerating those chemicals or those toxins like we could tolerate them before. It doesn't depend on how much you get each day. It's not the quantity of dose or the frequency. It's your own immune system not being able to tolerate it. And this is the problem that I think we're beginning to see in our practices when people become chronically ill and can't get well, is that they have this low immune tolerance. And so when we're talking about low immune tolerance, it really has to do with our barrier systems, our gut barrier, our lung barrier, our blood-brain barrier, our skin barrier. If those systems are compromised, then we're going to have low immune tolerance. So let me explain a little bit about a few of the things we know that help rebuild your tolerance. I had to learn this the hard way. Number one, detoxing, yes. But number two, and especially if you're very sensitive, you detox very slowly, by the way. And I always start people who are very, very sensitive, and I was one of those who was extremely sensitive at one time, with homeopathic drainages. And homeopathic drainages are really information and energy medicine. They give you a cellular detox. They help you release the toxins at a very deep level, but do it more gently than if you're doing a lot of strong herbs or you're doing a colon cleanse. Because I did a colon cleanse and I was in bed. So it was too much. It was too soon, too much. My body wasn't able to detoxify because I was so immune intolerant, and I also had this buildup of toxins that I couldn't clear out of my system. So vitamin A is absolutely essential for restoring barrier integrity. And I have my clients take at least 10,000 international units, not of beta carotene, but vitamin A. Because beta carotenes, for some people who are inflamed and toxic, they don't convert it to vitamin A very well. Those enzymes don't work. Vitamin E is another one. Some of your major antioxidants, and these are fat-soluble vitamins, so love your liver and love your bile. And vitamin D helps you rebuild your immune tolerance to things. And probiotics. There are many different types. There's one I just found a research study last night on reuteri, Lactobacillus reuteri, that helps your whole microbiome in the detoxification process. And most of them do. Improving your healthy microbiome, eating vegetables, doing vegetable smoothies along with eating your vegetables every day would be important for improving your entire microbiome and your immune tolerance to things. And the next thing we'll talk about, and we'll see on another slide, is glutathione. And glutathione is a master antioxidant. It's a master regulator of the immune system. It also supports natural immunity. So during this time, if you're thinking about viruses, you need to be taking extra glutathione. But when you have low immune tolerance, you have to be taking extra glutathione. You have to rebuild those stores, because every time you're exposed to a toxin, it is depleting your glutathione. And your body absolutely depends upon that glutathione to run its immune system, repair its DNA.
So important, Linda. I just want to comment on that this audience, people with autoimmune conditions, already have, most people have barrier system dysfunction. We've talked a lot about leaky gut as the pathway to autoimmune problems, probably leaky brain, leaky skin, lungs, etc., all included. We're learning so much of this as we go. But glutathione is just often missing in people. And NAC, we also talk about, which is a precursor to making your own glutathione, just might not be enough. And I talk about in the book, maybe take both. Well, that's just general autoimmune, maintenance, like to recover from an autoimmune condition. But in this world that we live in now, we must take, and I love liposomal glutathione. And so anyway, keep going. I'm interrupting.
I appreciate you saying that, because there are some support that we use here that have NAC, which is a precursor, which helps the lungs as well, clear out the lungs from phlegm, which is really good for that. And with glutathione, in fact, when people sometimes have lung congestion and lung issues, I have them inhale glutathione through a nebulizer. So, and it's powerful medicine for your lungs. Vitamin A helps your lungs as well. These are all the vitamins that I mentioned and that we talked about glutathione that help regulate autoimmune as well. Keep your immune system happy and regulated. All right. Palmer wanted me to mention this to you, and I'm not going to belabor you with all of these, but I'll kind of go over it. We do blood testing, and a very comprehensive 6-page blood test for all of our clients here at our office. And through that, I can actually identify how well they're detoxifying, not just genetics, because you can run a genetic test on that, and we certainly have done that. But that's not so important. It's looking at how your body's doing metabolically. Is it functioning well? If we do your red blood cell count and your white blood cell immune count, are you having an immune challenge? Could be a toxin. It could be a bacteria. And those bacterial toxins, your liver still has to detoxify. So that can clog up the liver pathways and compromise your detoxification. Liver function. We've got, the doctors don't usually run GGT, but they'll run these enzymes, ALT and AST, if they are increased, and even if they're medically increased. And you will have kind of an inflammatory state with your liver. Could be an infection, could be toxins, could be a fatty liver, which we're seeing a lot more people with fatty liver, and not even people just who are overweight. Some people who are not overweight will get a fatty liver. So in the GGT, we look for gallbladder issues. And sometimes you'll see that raised really, really high when there's bile stasis. And the person might have some right quadrant, where their ribs and their liver and gallbladder are, if they still have their gallbladder, still have pain. I have several clients without their gallbladder who have pain there still, which means that the bile is thickening and it's clogging the pathways, and there's inflammation, could be scar tissue also. And we see the GGT go up. We look at kidney function. Yes, uric acid, which is a byproduct, waste byproducts. But we look at the filtration rate, and it's called EGFR, estimated glomerular filtration rate. I always kind of slide over that because it's like a mouthful. But if it's low, that lets me know you are dehydrated, because it's a matter of how much solute, the density of your urine, or the purity of your urine. So do you have a lot of water in there? Do you have enough water? If it's heavy, it means that you are dehydrated, and you can't detox well and be dehydrated. Methylation, we talked about with birth control, B12, B6. We look at homocysteine levels, which is part of the methylation cycle. If it's high, means you're not methylating properly. You do need those nutrients because you have to repair your genes, and methylation is needed for detox as well. And methylation produces glutathione. You could have malabsorption, and we're going to look at your proteins and different proteins. We're also going to look at your calcium and magnesium, your electrolytes, to see if you're hydrated or not. And because you need those nutrients to detoxify. And if you're breaking down your proteins, because low immune tolerance starts in the gut when you're not breaking down your proteins with your hydrochloric acid and your enzymes. And the body thinks it's a toxin because that's a big protein. It's too big. And the body wants to get rid of it. And now you've got toxins running through your system, and you can't pull them out through the liver because you've got too much detritus and waste product.
Okay, you just said something so important, Linda, and I just want to pause for a moment, because this is the pathway to autoimmune problems. When your body can't break down proteins and you have these big protein peptides that start to create an inflamed and finally a leaky gut, and then they breach the gut barrier, right? That's when our whole immune system goes on high alert and it starts to attack those, and we start developing food sensitivities, right? So if we're not breaking down our protein, it's a super bad path. So I'm just, again, highlighting the importance of what Linda is saying about the need for digestive enzymes and HCl, particularly if you have autoimmune issues, particularly if you are over 40, let's say.
Yeah.
Right?
I love that, over 40.
Well, we start to, these naturally decline with age.
Yeah. But we're starting to see it in children too, though, I must tell you. They're having a lot of food sensitivities. And I want to go back to the low immune tolerance. That's what food sensitivities are low immune tolerance. So you don't have this barrier system that has a lot of integrity and is developing all these holes. So we look for those malabsorption. We want to make sure, because a detoxification happens in the gut. And it isn't just the liver. It's part of detoxification. Some of the detoxification enzymes, the phase 1 CYP, are in the villi, which process your food in the intestines. So they're there to help you process and detox. Carbon dioxide is our next one. Again, I look for low carbon dioxide in particular, because again, that's dehydration. That's your pH, acidic pH. Thyroid function, of course, we're going to look at thyroid, because the thyroid hormones are responsible for the maturation of all of the detoxification enzymes. And you can also have sluggish bile if you have low thyroid function. So, and also you won't break down your foods as easily because you're not going to have enough hydrochloric acid. So there's a lot of factors involved with thyroid function. Albumin's the protein that carries your waste products and your hormones. If it's high, there's something going on. It's not working like it should. If it's too low, you could have a low protein status, or you could also be having a problem with fluid retention, which is a thing that we see when people are not detoxifying. The one thing Paul and I had talked about before was talking about when I look at these blood tests and I see people of all types, and I see people like me many years ago as a vegan are eating more of a vegan or living more of a vegan vegetarian lifestyle. This is why I like to run the blood test. I want to make sure that everything in their blood test metabolically is working well as well, not only for all the rest of us, but especially because we know that B12 is an issue. And B12 runs methylation and the B vitamins. Iron is another one. Without iron, you cannot have any oxygen in your cells or energy. There is just no way. I also look for protein deficiency if there is or isn't a protein deficiency. I had a case recently, and it was like me many, many years ago before I started to do this work, that was severely deficient in lots of different nutrients. I didn't know that. Because the kind of a vegan that I wasn't the healthiest vegan at the time, because I thought I could eat soy and I could eat fast food and I have no problem with it. But I have a young girl who is extremely anxious. Her thyroid is running way too hot. She has an autoimmune attack on her thyroid. And she wants to feel better. I mean, that's her big thing. She is a very strict vegan. And when I looked at all of her blood markers, she was severely iron deficient, severely protein deficient. And there's no way she was going to be clearing any toxins she was exposed to as well and in her environment. So, I had to have a conversation. And sometimes, when I have a conversation, I have been there because I was a vegan for 12 years. So I understand all of this and it's nothing wrong with it at all. And I think it's a wonderful philosophy. And for religious purposes as well, I was. But I look at getting people well. What can I do to support them to be well and help their body facilitate? And I had to make a big decision at that time. What was I going to do? Because I was getting sicker and sicker and feeling worse and worse and could not function. And when I realized all these things were going on with me, I had to make a big decision to start adding some meat. I added fish first and then started adding meat later to start to rebuild my tissues, because you cannot detoxify without adequate protein in your system. It is absolutely essential for all detoxification processes. So I had to start to rebuild my cells again from the inside out. So I'm just saying a word of caution for some people. If you are having chronic illness, really dig deep inside of you and say, what do I need to do to get myself healthy? Now, it doesn't mean you can't go back to doing another type of dietary approach, because you can do a therapeutic diet for a period of time. So
beautifully said. Thank you. I think that was really beautifully said, Linda. So important.
I just want to mention it. Okay. This is really quick on this slide. I just want you all to know, and Palmer has mentioned it in her book, that a lot of these different toxins stay with us for years. Look at the PCBs down there towards the bottom. Up to 25 years. They actually did a study where they took the blood and they preserved it of workers that worked in a chemical factory. And they tested the PCB at first, saw very high levels, saved their blood for 25 years, went back and tested their blood again. Guess what? PCBs were even higher in their blood than they were initially. It has preserved for up to it's 25 years later.
So where do PCBs come from, Linda? You got to tell us quickly, where are PCBs getting in?
That's a good question.
That's okay. We've got that. We'll address PCBs. That's super important, and we will look at that.
It's all
write about it.
By phenols. I would say it's probably more plastics and things like that, but we need to take a look at that.
Yeah.
When I'm speaking about these things, sometimes I remember some, and sometimes I go, yeah, what was that one again?
There's too many. Honestly, it's complicated.
And then I drew this chart because when we're looking at those of us with autoimmune conditions and chronic illness for other people as well, we want to notice what systemic effects does it have on us? What are we seeing? We are seeing autoimmunity. We're seeing chronic infections that don't get resolved. Allergies. All of a sudden, like me, I didn't have any allergies that I knew of, right? Now I had allergies. What was this all about? Why couldn't I go out in the trees? They were bothering me. Why was that happening? Why the flowers? I couldn't even have a vase of flowers near me. It was so bad at one time. So this is what happens, because when you develop this low immune tolerance and poor detoxification, your immune system shifts into an allergic mode. It's just what it does. And it lowers your innate immunity to fight viruses. So that's something you should be aware of. And that's where vitamin A and vitamin D really do help you. And vitamin C. That's another one I would add in there. And it's going to have effects on our hormones, our endocrine system, our nervous system, our brain. My brain fog was so bad, I sometimes didn't know where I was, which means I shouldn't have been driving.
No.
I was like, no. And I try to read something in a textbook and I go, what did I read? Just read. I haven't a clue what I read. And it's just not a good situation when you're younger and you feel like you're supposed to have a good brain function. Didn't realize I was so toxic, that all those toxins were recirculating to my brain and they were affecting my hormones. My PMS was off the chart. For 2 weeks, I'd have PMS. And so you can see dramatic impact throughout the body. So these are some of the signs and symptoms. Again, as we said, sensitivity to chemicals, odors, medications, all of a sudden, chronic fatigue, depression, anxiety, mood swings are very common, and brain fog is very, very common when you have a buildup of toxins. And then, which is the cognitive dysfunction. People tell me, I just can't concentrate anymore. I have young people who tell me, I just can't concentrate. My brain is so fogged. It takes me longer to think of something. A person asks me a question, and I have to think about answering it because I can't quite think of what to say. That's a sad state of affairs. That's where I was. It was very serious. I was stuttering even. It was so bad at times. And then recurrent headaches. A lot of times toxins will get lodged in your sinuses. That's another barrier system. And people don't really say, oh, I have these migraines. I say, where do you have the migraines? And I say, is it right across your forehead, just right, a little bit above the top of your head? Do you have it on the side? And most people say, oh, it's right at my forehead, top of the head. And then I say, does it feel like you have tightness all the way across the head, right back to the brainstem at the top of the neck? Because there's that tightness that happens when you get inflamed in your sinuses. I had that every single day for years. Didn't know what it was. Nothing would help it. Until I started doing this work. Muscle aches, infertility, again, changing your hormones, not being able to detox your hormones properly. So you build up estrogen, you become estrogen dominant, and you lower your progesterone, and infertility can recur as that. Recurrent infections, because your immune system can't take care of them. Of course, people have pain. And then the disorders that go along with it, from autoimmune diseases to neurodegenerative disorders, even autism, which is brain inflammation, and actually autism is an autoimmune condition now. We kind of recognize it as such. Think of obesity as a highly inflammatory state, a lot of inflammation from all of the different areas of fat where you're holding fat, and of course, cancer. So I know, doomsday.
It's a lot. It's a lot, but this is such a helpful slide. And I just want people to take away from this, like, these things can manifest as anything in your body, in your mood. So this is just hey, if you've got this going on, this is just a message from your body to dig deeper, that there might be something going on, that you have become intolerant to your environment.
It's funny. When I first was really ill and I went to my medical doctor, and I finally, because he wouldn't believe me, because, he ran a few blood tests, maybe 10 markers, and said, you look fine, you're healthy, you look good. I could hardly walk in. I finally decided after a couple months that I would literally write down my symptoms every day, because they switch. That's the one thing you'll notice when you're really, really toxic. And have multiple chemical sensitivity, your symptoms will switch to different systems, from the GI system to the brain, to the skin, to your hormones, all the time. So I started writing down, and then I made a list of the most predominant symptoms, and I took them to my doctor. And, we only have 15 minutes, right? And I said, I thought this would help you understand what I'm dealing with every single day. And he looked at me, and I literally never forget. He looked at me. He says, what do you expect me to do with this?
You're in the wrong place, Linda. Like,
And then,
can we just agree you're in the wrong
he wrote
place?
a prescription for the psychotherapist. And I was like, okay, I think this is not going to be helpful to me at all. So
great for you. You
out of conventional medicine.
You got on the right path. All right. So what are we going to do next? We're going to just a little bit on this, right?
Yeah. Yeah, this is a little bit. This is just this is the symptoms of, and when you have any kind of liver or gallbladder issues, I just want you to be aware of these symptoms. High fatty foods will cause you distress. You'll burp up your fish oils. You might have a bitter metallic taste. Your skin might itch all of a sudden because you've got high bilirubin all of a sudden. Most people don't have a yellowish cast to their eyes unless they have full-on jaundice. Sometimes you'll get reddened palms. If you ever looked at your palms and they're really, really red, the liver's acting a little bit inflamed. Flaky skin, dry hair, that could be thyroid as well. Gallbladder attacks or stones or gallbladder pain. And have you had it removed? So those are the symptoms. And these are also signs when it's really worse, whether you're going to have some recurrent pain in the gallbladder area and tenderness, and you don't have stones. So you're going to have sometimes nausea. You're going to have itching. I had itching all night long when I had these symptoms. My feet would itch. Nothing would stop it. I definitely couldn't take any fish oil at the time. Now I take one that's emulsified so that the fats are broken down, pre-digested. And then I had, of course, impaired memory and concentration. And so now I want to really go into what it looks like when you have really poor detoxification. And we see acne a lot. All my clients who have acne usually have polycystic ovarian syndrome if they're female, usually high testosterone, but not all. It just means that your body needs to detoxify. You have unhealthy skin. Remember, skin is your largest organ. You might have hair loss, bloating, gas, edema, swelling, retention of fluid, definitely hormone imbalances. PMS is a sign you are not detoxifying your hormones properly. Weight gain is another one that we see very often when you have poor detoxification. Also, when you're trying to lose weight, those fat cells are repository for toxins. And you need to be detoxing the whole and supporting detoxification the whole time because you're losing fat, and that fat has toxins, and you have got to clear them so they don't recirculate. And again, we talked about constipation, poor bowel function. And some of the clients say, I have foul smelling sweat. What is that all about? They absolutely need to detoxify. In fact, I tell my clients, I think that the functional medicine centers of the future will be detoxification centers, because we all need to detoxify and improve our detoxification. So what's the process? We're going to run through the process. It's just reducing the toxic quality of something, and so it doesn't have such an effect on us. So let's look at how that happens and what we can do about it. First of all, this is the liver. This is the immune system of the liver. It breaks down our red blood cells. It breaks down our toxins. It breaks down our bacteria so we can excrete them into the bile. And so they can flow into the gallbladder and then out through the intestines, out through the feces. So how the liver actually detoxifies is in several phases. It's at least 2 phases, but now we know 3 phases. And the third one is the bile and not having constipation. And then, of course, the gut. So phase 1, this is biotransformation, biology, transforming something. So it's taking the biochemical structure of a toxin. It could be a hormone. It could be a drug. It could be a bacterial toxin. And many times they're mostly fat soluble. It makes them into water soluble, because if it's fat soluble, it will not go out through the feces and excrete properly. You have to make it into a water-soluble toxin. And it's run by at least 50 different enzyme systems. And the primary one is called cytochrome, CYP 450. All drugs are processed through this system. And drugs are targeted for specific enzymes in this system. So you can see how important this phase 1 really is. And as we're having the phase 1 toxins, they are less active, but they are, sorry, I didn't slow down my PowerPoint. They can be more toxic than your original toxin. So you've got to get rid of it. Because if not, they're going to accumulate in all your fatty tissues. Now, think of where your fatty tissues are. Where we know they are. They're right in your abdomen. Think of around your breast, a lot of fatty tissue around the underarms, and think of the brain, fat. So they're going to start to build up, and they're going to affect those different areas of the body that have more fatty tissue. It needs a lot of energy. We can start this process through fasting or starvation or coffee. Problem is, if you make this too fast and your phase 2 is slow, you're going to recirculate your toxins. So you can see all these different things that can start it: cigarette smoke, aspirin, sleep medications, even saturated fat can start this whole process of phase 1 and speed it up. But it can be slowed down by grapefruit. And this is why some medications, like the cholesterol medications, they actually say do not eat grapefruit when you're taking this medication, at least around when you're taking the medication. 30%, it slows it down, phase 1. And what happens if, let's just say you eat grapefruit, you're taking your cholesterol medication, it slows the cholesterol medication delivery by 30%. What happens to the cholesterol medication? It's too much. It becomes toxic because it's slowed down. Remember, it has to be filtered through this process, through these enzymes at a certain rate. Even antidepressants slow down this biotransformation, and thyroid deficiencies and pesticides also.
I want to say one quick thing before you go on. A praise for cholesterol instead of vilifying cholesterol.
Yes.
Which you've touched on cholesterol a few times, and I just want to make sure that people understand that we used to think that high cholesterol is bad, but studies now show that the countries with the highest levels of cholesterol live the longest. And people like my gynecologist, who saw my cholesterol of 105 and wrote excellent on my chart when I was in my 20s, for example. Today, that would almost be malpractice. I mean, cholesterol is a supremely important substrate. It's so important. You make all of your sex hormones from cholesterol. Cholesterol is not the villain. So I just want to throw that out, that there's a huge, reshifting, because we've heard for so long that cholesterol is the problem. I just want to throw that out there. So I would rather have grapefruit than take any cholesterol lowering medication. Just saying. All right, Linda, back to you.
Yeah, but which is perfect. But as practitioners, you and I know we have to know those things, because there are some foods that will impede the process of metabolization of these different drugs. So we have to be aware, because it's like, ding, 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 ding. Do you want to have a problem? So
absolutely.
These are just phase 1 reactions. We're not going to go over each one. I just want you to know this highly energy dependent. If you're low in energy, it's not going to work as well. It clears all of our halogens, which is chlorine and fluorine and bromine. Think of your hot tubs. By the way, I'm not a fan of hot tubs, especially if you're in a detox program, because it contains chlorine and bromine. Two highly toxic chemicals. Now, if you have another way of oxygenating the water, that's a whole different story. But people think, I can go in the hot tub and I can detox. No, you can't. You're going to build up your toxins. You're going to impede biotransformation. Not a good sign. Phase 2, all of those metabolites that are made from phase 1, remember, these are water soluble now. Now we have different nutrients that actually bind to those metabolites, like cleave onto them, like hold on, and pull them out now through the whole detoxification process so they can be excreted through the feces and the urine, of course, both. These are just different pathways. And the reason I wanted to bring this to your attention, because each of these different conjugation or binding pathways detoxifies different aspects of not only our physiology, but also different types of toxins. And these are some of the nutrients that they actually need to function. And this is why I'm trying to actually make it so important when you look at this, that how important having nutrients in your foods to detoxify is absolutely crucial. And when you're nutrient deficient, very, very slow and sluggish detoxification. So the acetyl-CoA is energy. That's energy. It's from our normal metabolism. And this pathway detoxifies sulfa drugs and our histamines. Think of allergies. Think of building up histamines. So if you're going to have problems with acetylation if you're building up histamines. So you need your vitamin C. You need your bioflavonoids from your fruits. You need B5 and B1, and all your B vitamins are really important. You will find me taking B vitamins several times a day just to make sure my histamine load isn't so high. You'll find me taking bioflavonoids in supplemental form to keep my histamines down. And I'm not going to go into why I have all these issues. Still, I'm very healthy, but I had mold toxicity at a very high level. So I'm still working on clearing it. I'm kind of down to the bottom level of that. Amino acids are your proteins. These are all your different proteins: taurine, glutamine, glycine, ornithine, even yucca, up as a plant, will help this process. But you need proteins. If you're protein deficient, this won't not work. You will build up ammonia, and that's very, very toxic. Sometimes we have to use charcoal to detoxify that. Also, people with thyroid issues may have a poorly functioning conjugation amino acid. Glucuronidation, you should really know this one if you have any hormone issues. It's made from sugar, glucose. So a steady state of glucose, healthy blood sugar regulation is crucial for this whole glucuronidation process. This is your major conjugation or detox pathway for hormones and the xenobiotics, the estrogen and hormone mimics and pesticides, and your fat-soluble vitamins and bilirubin, which breaks down and gets rid of your old red blood cells, and pharmaceuticals. I won't talk about beta-glucuronidase right now, but just know that this is an enzyme that will actually stop this process, and we can see it on a stool test. So lemons and apples and magnesium and B vitamins are needed, and calcium D-glucarate. We have a lot of our clients who have hormone issues on detox support with all these nutrients and also calcium D-glucarate, because that improves glucuronidation. There's another thing that we see on blood tests. If a person has high bilirubin and it's constant, and they have Gilbert's syndrome, they have a genetic issue with glucuronidation, and these women who have it are more likely to have hormone issues. So you've got to add those nutrients in to help make the glucuronidation work.
I love that we can look at nutrition to get these processes in good shape. So let's run through these, because people can pause on these slides and come back to this again and again, which I love.
Yeah. And glutathione, we've talked about how important glutathione is. Glutathione also helps methylation and breaks down your hormones. And milk thistle also produces glutathione. Lemon is another one, makes natural glutathione. And acetylcysteine. Methionine, which is only found in meat, which is one of your proteins, starts the whole cycle. So glutathione conjugation is imperative if you're going to have not only good hormone viability, but also if you have an autoimmune condition, having enough glutathione is going to help regulate your immune system. Methylation goes along with that. Again, it's actually adding conjugate binding, a methyl group. which is carbon, hydrogen, oxygen in certain proportions. SAMe, B12, B6, vitamin E, selenium, and the list goes on and on. Folate, betaine hydrochloride, beets, betaine hydrochloride, stomach acid, leafy greens, go on and on. I mean, just fill your day with all these colorful vegetables and just think of nutrition. And what I like to ask my clients is, how many different colors can you get into your day? I'll share with you, and I'll send it to you, a chart that you can send to everybody. They can actually fill out and they can see the different vegetable groups. Because I think it's really important that we think about not just one type of food, because, sometimes we get so stressed and so busy that we eat the same lunch every day, the same breakfast every day, and maybe 2 different dinners if we're going to do 3 meals a day, and the same snacks, which I really understand, because I'm like everyone else. I'm super busy as well. But we have to remember that it's the variety of vegetables, of colors, and fruits that provide us with all these different nutrients and phytonutrients that we absolutely need for healthy detoxification and health overall. And this pathway is very important because it detoxifies our neurotransmitters. And I've been studying a lot of genetics around neurotransmitters and mood issues and anxiety and depression. And I found that if we don't have those B vitamins present, we can't make those work in our brain. We cannot make our different neurochemicals work in our brain. We also can't detoxify histamine. So I'm on B vitamins with methylators and glutathione every day. And it also helps detoxify and metabolize so the body can use estrogen, because estrogen is going to ride on cholesterol and get through the body, and it's made by cholesterol. So sulfation, if you're sensitive to sulfur foods like broccoli or onions or garlic, definitely you might have a problem with sulfation. And it also helps your hormones, and it also helps your brain chemicals. And look at all the different types of sulfur nutrients: cysteine, taurine, molybdenum is in a lot of vitamin formulas, and of course all your sulfur foods.
So, question for you on that before you go on. So, if you're saying that people have trouble with sulfur foods like onions and cabbage and so forth, are you suggesting that they take cysteine and taurine, or what are you saying?
No, I know that we need it to run this process. Molybdenum is the one you want to take.
Okay, great.
Molybdenum and B1, biotin actually are the 2 that you want to take to make this process work better so you aren't so sensitive.
Great. Fantastic. That is a clinical pearl that I really appreciate. So guys, we don't hear about I can't even say it, molybdenum. I still didn't say it right. We don't hear about it. But we need to consider looking in our multivitamins to see if it's present. If it's not, and
you do extra. Yeah.
You need to do extra.
Yeah. I actually get it from Allergy Research. I do it in liquid form. You can also buy it in pill form as well. It's very inexpensive. If you need extra, if you're really having a problem with sulfur. My mother was one of those that had problems. She couldn't handle sulfur drugs at all, and garlic and onions. I grew up with a mother who did not cook with garlic.
I'm sorry.
Glory be. She could not tolerate all these things, so she just left them out of the food. I did not have it till I was older. I don't have a problem with this, but she did. So
she needed the molybdenum is what she needed to be able to do it.
Yeah. Well, my mother discovered B vitamins. Isn't that interesting? She had eczema, and my mother had multiple autoimmunes, and eczema was one of them, along with her Hashimoto's and then a couple others. But she discovered the B vitamins really, really help. So think of, needing the methylation and the glutathione and all of that for your skin too. So, okay. Last part is gastrointestinal, and this is bile as well. And this is your intestinal mucosa. I'm sure you've you've seen seminars, webinars about the intestinal mucosa and also the microbiome, how important it is. And it's your detoxification enzymes are there in your microbiome. So just be aware of it. Also, you make your B vitamins. By the way, the liver stores all of your fat-soluble vitamins and B12. So Not lots, but it does store it, makes it available to you. So we need our good and healthy microbiome, and we need our good, healthy gut flora. And as I mentioned before, we actually have in our villi, which are little hair-like projections in our intestines, which move all the food, is where we actually absorb all of our food. They carry on each of the villi the CYP450 phase 1 enzymes. So they're there to help you break down, detoxify.
Wow.
And all of your bacterial enzymes that are also made in the microbiome in your gut flora. And of course, we want to have good pepsin action and hydrochloric acid so we can have bile production. We can also break down, because acid, that kind of acid breaks down and pulls apart parasites, bacteria from our food to kill it. And if it's not there, we have bacterial, not only toxins from our environment, we have internally all these bacterial toxins that they're giving off toxin release all the time. So these are important parts of detoxification. And I have to say, you can't just have the liver detoxify, the kidney. It's 200 quarts of blood that it has to sift out, 2 quarts of waste products every single day. And there's 1 million nephrons. Kidneys, I mean, can you imagine this beautiful body of ours? And blood flows into the kidneys. It removes the waste, and that returns it to the blood purified back to the body. So it's really important that we're drinking healthy, filtered water every single day, at least 2 quarts, because our body processes need at least that much to run all of these different processes, and especially through the kidneys. And if you show you're dehydrated on a blood test, it means that not only you may be drinking too much water, which we've seen actually, you're diluting all of your minerals, because your minerals and B vitamins are what help hold in your fluids. And if you're low in your minerals or your electrolytes are imbalanced, like your potassium and your sodium and your chloride, and of course we'll add magnesium and calcium into that, and we know that you're dehydrated, you need electrolytes. You need to have extra electrolytes, whether you do it through foods, but usually I have people do extra electrolytes for a while just to kind of rebuild that system and make it work more efficiently. Lymphatic system is our drainage system. Think of the blood vessels. It runs exactly alongside of our blood vessels. And so you can imagine what's ever in the blood, if there's waste products running around, they dump into the lymphatic system. And the nodes have all kinds of immune chemicals. And they help break down the cellular debris and clear bacteria. And all your nutrients and hormones and waste products are carried through this system. So how you make this system work is to have heat, and to have movement. So think of physical activity, think of sweating. And sweating with physical activity or sweating in a sauna would be a good choice. Take an Epsom salt bath, because you get a good exchange of magnesium ions through that. There's a pumping system for the lymph system. It's very important when you're doing a detox program that you don't forget that. It's extremely important. And the brain, this is fairly new research, the brain has a lymphatic system, and it's running through the cerebral spinal fluid. And how it's activated is mostly at night when we're sleeping. It's called our glymphatic system. It's glial cells, which are the immune system of the brain. And it helps, actually what happens is the brain shrinks like a sponge, pulling out all of the debris and the plaque at night. This is why sleep during a detox program is so essential. I can't say enough about it. And it drains out through your skull. Think of just putting your hands right in the back of your head, right at the bottom of your skull. And that's where it's draining out. That's where the arteries and veins and the cranial nerves into these cervical lymph nodes. That's where it drains. And sometimes I will just put my hand on that area and just close my eyes and then start to feel a little pulsing through my hands. And I wait for that pulsing. And when that pulsing starts, just hold on and love it. And that is activating the drainage of your lymph system right there in the back of your head. So what keeps us from detoxifying? We've already gone over so much. Stress also, because you have a highly inflamed, constricted state, low thyroid function, systemic inflammation from any type of issue. Autoimmune, of course, is one of the major issues, chronic infections, structural disintegrity, because again, if your structure is off, it's impeding your neurology and your blood flow as well. And poor liver detox. Genetics, there are a lot of genetics aligned with this. You can do some genetic testing at Genova Diagnostics, or one of the companies that runs a genetic, 23andMe is one of those, but it's not extensive enough. I use nutrigenetic analysis for this. They're one of the best companies I've come across, most usable, friendly, and usable for my clients to look at their genetics and see what's going on and what to do about it, by the way. Constant exposure. So every day, lower your toxic load. Choose one thing in your environment every day or every week or every month. Like, for instance, it took me a while, but to save up the money, but we changed over all of our cookware. So, because we had nothing but aluminum cookware. So we changed everything over. We had nonstick coatings on our cookware. So we changed everything. But think of one thing that you can do, the water. Maybe your air quality in your environment. Maybe it's a cosmetic that you're using, or a lotion that you're using, or some kind of household cleaning product that you're using. Just start making those simple changes, because the studies show when you're not being exposed, you don't build up so much toxin in your system. Watch out for dehydration, and also address your nutritional deficiencies. Those are really important. So all of this is to say that we need to have effective detoxification on an ongoing basis. This is the basis of the program that I developed. It isn't just you improving your colon or your liver. It's a whole body, your kidney, your lymph, your lungs. Think of your lungs as what a powerful detoxification, like breathing, doing healthy breathing every day. And don't wear your mask outside if you're just going for a walk, because you need that oxygen, please. Only if you need to be in public places. Just know that that mask will cut your oxygen down to 15%, and we need oxygen every day. So when you're not around people, take it off. Use that oxygen so your lungs, and do deep breathing. In my manual for Detox 360, we have some deep breathing exercises because we're addressing all aspects. So the first picture, the photo that we have there, it shows change your environment, change the things that you do in your environment to lower your toxic load. Then effectively use heat to detoxify. And that's where saunas comes in. And a hot tub that has water that isn't toxic would be also effective. Sleep. It's absolutely imperative you had good sleep, not only detoxify your brain, but to keep your body healthy. And when your body is healthy, you naturally detoxify better. Targeted nutrients to really help your body become much more efficient at detoxifying the toxins that you take in every day, and your hormones as well. And food, healthy, colorful, organically grown food on a daily basis, and make a real commitment. I think of organically grown food as my health insurance. Because all my clients say, I spend so much on my health insurance, especially for my family. I say, but your best health insurance is not to use the doctor as much, very little. Unfortunately, might put some of them out of business, which may not be a good thing for some people. Exercise or physical activity to move your lymph system. And then the next one is education. Educate yourself about your health and about your body. And notice things with your body, what's going on with your body. And then you can kind of put the pieces together of, oh, I've got these symptoms. Oh, maybe this is what's really going on. So you can help yourself heal as well. And then get good advice from your health professionals. And then adjunctive therapies, whether it's massage therapy or acupuncture or chiropractic care, even when you're on a detox program, those are very important to open up the detox pathways and relax your body enough that you're not so stressed every day. And so
Linda,
that's my detox.
This was so beautiful and so comprehensive and fantastic. I mean, we have just been through a Love Our Livers Detoxification 101, a full program of how to take great care of ourselves, starting with what are the signs and symptoms, and then what in the world do our organs do? And what am I feeling right there under my rib cage? Oh, that's my liver. Maybe it's talking to me. Maybe there's something going on. This has just been so rich. And I know that people are going to listen to this again and take notes. And, they're going to pull out their lab work, which I do a lot more of this now with people, is look at those markers and be able to tell, like, this is a sign that you might be dehydrated, or this is a sign that you've got some liver issues, or maybe a fatty liver. It's like having a dashboard so that you can make better decisions with your life. I mean, we have one body, one mind, one spirit. Let's optimize it. Who's got time for feeling as bad as we may feel? Back when I was diagnosed with MS at 19, there were no books. There was no internet. This was trial and error for 26 years. We don't need to take that much time to find the root cause of our problems. We have people like Linda who can help guide people to help. We have people like me, people that are part of Beat Autoimmune Academy. I mean, these are people who really, really are invested in being well, and not just well, but better than they ever were before. And having this foundational information is transformative. So I just want to say thank you for your generosity, for spending this time with me. And I wonder, do you have anything else that you'd like to end with? Because it's just been so rich, and I don't want you to feel like, I've cut you off. I want you to feel complete.
I never feel cut off. Because, the thing is, one thing I've learned about life and my life in general is, and I didn't know this early on in my life, not only do I love health and I'm passionate about being health, but I look at vibrant life, vibrant health. How much vibrancy can we develop, not only physiologically, but like you said, emotionally and mentally and even spiritually in our life, because that's part of the whole healing process. But what I have found, and this is why I started studying physiology and anatomy, because I find, this is me, I'm the why person. If I know what's going on, and I don't have to know every little thing, I just have to know like the big picture and maybe a few specifics. If I know what's going on, I know what I can do to help myself. And I think that's one of the most important things. And as far as detoxification, living a detox lifestyle, this is going to be our health from now on and in the future, is being able to live a life where you're not building up such a toxic load that you're having to work harder to make sure that not only your detox is working, but it's your immune system that gets so challenged by this. And your immune system will always be under fire, destroying cells in your body. And if we want to live a healthy life and age well, we've got to keep that inflammation down. And especially with an autoimmune, and I have, as you know, you have the autoimmune, I have autoimmune conditions, especially with that. Right. And it's, and that's why every day, and I think I've talked about this before in another interview, is making those healthy choices for yourself and being willing to do that and forgiving yourself if you think, oh, I've fallen off. Don't be perfect. Just make as healthy choices as you possibly can. And now hopefully you have a few more healthy choices about detoxification and keeping the toxic load down every day.
Absolutely. So beautifully said, Linda. I love that you ended up on this, because every single moment we have a choice. We're faced with a choice of what to eat, where do we spend our time, who do we hang out with, what kind of thoughts are we thinking. we are talking about minimizing toxins holistically. It's not just food, it's not just supplements, it's not just your organs, but it is how we live our lives. So thank you, thank you, thank you. This was absolutely a perfect amount of information, and I can't wait to talk with you again soon.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You take great care.
All righty.
And that's a wrap. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, share it with your friends and family, and if you feel inspired, please leave a quick review so other people can find it too. Now, if you want to beat autoimmune and thrive, make sure you sign up for my free video training at freeautoimmunetraining.com. That's freeautoimmunetraining.com, and watch the first video right away. Take good care. Bye for now.